this is kind of a little off topic, but it's something I read about on your website. You said that you wanted to bring the attention of the people of Maine to how much tax money gets spent on the methadone clinics here in Maine, and I wondered like what your policy was on that. That was on your website, like how programs like that, how they're...
There's no incentive in the methadone. The methadone clinics are federally financed by and large, and they are privately contracted with the feds, and they.
Somebody has you on the website saying that you were going to do something about that.
All right. Well, let me tell you.
How Maine Care is paid for by the taxpayers, and how Maine Care covers it.
All right. Well, let me dip into that a bit. About 12 or 15 years ago, the number one problem in child abuse cases was alcohol and violence. The number one problem that the Department of Human Services is confronting in Somerset County and Washington County and Penobscot is prescription drug abuse.
Right, yeah, I see that you have that.
And it happened because the medical profession about 12 or 15 years ago was in some sense duped by the pharmaceutical industry into thinking that OxyContin and some of these other painkillers were safe to use on a constant maintenance basis. And they wound up finding the hard way that the byproduct of all that was a bunch of people that were sadly and profoundly addicted. And we wound up, in response to that, creating methadone clinics that are a way of maintaining somebody in society, using methadone as a way of quelling, of actually answering that need. The state has very little control over them because they're federally licensed, they're federally mandated, and they're federally financed by and large. It's been my observation that there's very little incentive for the commercial operators of the methadone clinics to wean people from dependency on methadone itself. They get paid $13, $14 a day, every day, for the little cup of methadone. Medicaid does pay for transporting people from places like Skowhegan and Bingham down to Waterville.
Doesn't that come from taxpayer money?
That does. That's the state's contribution to it. And I don't think that they do a good job of managing the medical needs of these people beyond the need for the drug, for methadone.
It seems like it's a big business all at the expense of the taxpayers. It kind of almost seems like, in a way.
It's a big business where there's no assessment being done of their capacity to make people well. There's a philosophy that once you are addicted, it's a lifetime. It may be in many cases. I don't disagree with it. But there are people who have voluntarily withdrawn from those clinics saying, I didn't need it forever. I had enough. I had the ability to wean myself from it when I did, but I wasn't encouraged to by the methadone clinics. I introduced a number of measures to control to restrict the delivery and circulation of addictive pharmaceuticals. They were, if you go to the dentist and have a root canal, you will get a 10-day supply of Vicodin. I went to the medical association. I says, "Why in the hell are you doing that? That stuff is winding up in people's. Who needs a 10-day supply? If you go beyond 2 or 3 days with horrible pain, you should be back seeking some other remedy." I mean, it just was crazy. So the drug cabinets, the pharmacy, the bathroom cabinets of our homes all through Maine are filled with these things left over from little surgeries that we had and procedures that we had years ago. The medical profession, in response to a bill that I got through, has rewritten the rules on how to manage and control the delivery of opioids, they're called. That's the generic term. And there will be some improvement from it. It's not quite enough for my liking, but we're doing something good. But we have in central Maine, a full-fledged epidemic. 10 years ago, 30 people a year would die of drug overdose. We're now at 150 to 160, 5 times as many. We're killing more people with pharmaceutical drugs than we are with the automobile. And we had last year 430, I think, drug-affected babies born in the state of Maine. Babies that had to be weaned from hard drugs. It's a hell of a way to end a life. So it's a serious problem. It's not being well dealt with by anybody. And it's more rampant, it's more of a problem in this region of the state than it is in southern Maine. Yes?
What do you think of charter schools in Maine?
I think we should have them. My daughter is a teacher, she's 40 years old now. She taught them one time, thought it was refreshing. Now, they're not all great. You have to have a rigorous system of, assessing and evaluating them. And if they don't turn out well, they should be closed. So, Obama thinks they're great. And Arnie Duncan, his education guy, thinks they're pretty great, and says if you would like to have some piece of that, whatever it is, $4.5 billion that they've got for the race to the top, if you want a piece of that money, you better have a state law that says that charter schools are allowed. And we don't allow them. We're one of a dozen states, I think, that do not allow them. I don't know, I think they're worth trying. We have had good luck with the magnet school up in Aroostook County, but that's not a charter school, that's a magnet school, a public magnet school. Yes?
You speak of assessment. The current state employee system does have a certain parameter for evaluations and assessments, but being a union shop, there's a sort of gaps that keep hitting as far as that. What would you propose as far as assessment for state employees?
We need to read on, I've read this recently, I've read all 7 of the major labor contracts that the state employees negotiate with the state. There's 7 large unions, and those contracts come up typically on a fiscal year basis. They are contracts that emphasize longevity over every other value. There is something in it, in each one of them, called merit pay, which is not based on merit, it's based on showing up with a pulse. Maybe I'm overstating it, but
there is parameters for merit increases, but yeah.
There is a merit pay system. It's just that it's not based on merit, as far as anybody can tell. Every adverse comment in a personnel record is grieved, can be made the subject of a grievance. Even if the adverse comment is allowed to stand, it's eradicated automatically after 3 years if there's good conduct. That isn't the biggest problem, however, with the system that we have for state employment. And I have a lot of sympathy for it. I really do. I mean, I didn't sound like it in the last few remarks, but I've worked with them very closely over the years on many issues. But one of the biggest issues is the complete absence of portability in their pension system and their retirement benefits. It is the system assumes, because they don't have any access to Social Security. So if they have Social Security credits from some other job, and then they retire out of state employment or teaching, then the Social Security Act, the U.S., the federal law, discounts their Social Security by a significant percentage of their pension. And so as a result, if you start work at age 22 as a state employee, right out of college, it's assumed that you're going to be there until you're 62, the normal retirement age, and that you will never work anywhere else, which 40 years ago was not an invalid assumption.
And it's an aging workforce, too.
It is.
One of the largest employers with an aging workforce.
Yep.
Would you be in favor of a large early retirement across the board?
I think we need a lot of them. I'm sorry, I know a lot of these aging people. I work with them every day. I gotta be candid. Many of them are very valuable. They have a storehouse of knowledge about, and I call on them frequently as a state senator, so I'm a big fan of state employees. Many of them. I can name you a number that I have deep respect for. But my 40-year-old daughter, teacher of the year down in some suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina. this past year, and she's taught in 3 nations and 5 states. That's what kids are doing. They're not teaching. Remember Dick Gould in Farmington? Graduated from Bates College and taught 52 years straight, one job. I mean, I love the guy, but that's not happening anymore.